Hi everyone, I hope you all are great. Today we will have point of view. First, you have to log in using the aplusstudent.com. Click on your name, move on to language at the grade 8. Chapter is point of view. Lesson will be identify the narrative point of view. Alright, so the narrator of a story is the voice that is telling or narrating the story. A narrator's point of view is a perspective from which a story is told. There are three main points of view. So it's the way a story is told. Now, in a first person, we have the narrator describes events from his or her own perspective. So first person narrator use first person pronouns like I, me, we, and us. So this is the first person narrative. Okay, so that's how he narrates the story or tells something. So I wandered slowly across the river, holding my backpack high above the water. So as you can see, it says I. So that's first person. In second person, the narrator casts the reader as a character in the story. Second person narrator use second person pronouns such as you and your. Okay, so it casts the reader as the character in this story and it uses you and your. You turn the page in anticipation, eager to find out where the story will lead. So that is second person narration. All right, so for the third person, the narrator describes events from the perspective of an outside observer. Third person narrator uses third person pronouns such as he, she, him, her, as well as character's name. So, you know, when you read a story and then it's giving you an explanation, but it looks like it is someone who is telling the story, like looking at the characters doing the thing and then telling you the story. That is the third person narrator, okay? And then the first person is when I'm telling a story and make it myself, all about myself, and I say, oh, I went down the stairs, I did this, I did that. Okay. So with a third person limited point of view, the observer's knowledge is limited to what a single character knows and feels. Maria wondered whether her new neighbor's laugh was genuine. Okay, so it is limited. They don't have enough like ideas. All right. All right, so with a third person omniscient point of view, the observer is all knowing and often reveals multiple characters' thoughts and feeling. Bernard was confident that the model record would launch without a hitch, but Nina had had doubts. So it tells you like different characters' thoughts. Okay. All right, let's look at some examples so that we can better understand it. So it says, which point of view does the narrator use in the passage? Okay. Gary Fletcher grabbed his arm as he went by. Gonna run today. Jess nodded. Gary smirked. He thinks he can beat me. The dumbhead. At the thought something jiggled inside Jess. He knew he was better than he had been last spring. Fletcher might think he was going to be the best now that Wayne Peters was in sixth, but he just planned to give old Fletcher a little surprise come noon. Now, if you look at this, this is referring to what? So this is in third person, okay? As you can see, the observer knowledge is limited to what a single character knows. So this is basically in third person, okay? All right, so let's look at some more examples. So we have what you kind of remember having some bad dreams, but you can't remember what they were. You just lie there flat as the faded strike of afternoon sunlight that slants through the western window and impales your bird. Now, just looking at this, this is about the second person because it uses you and your, okay? It shows a second person point of view. The narrator casts the reader as a character in the story using second person pronouns. Okay? He himself was a very old man with shaggy white hair, which grew over most of his face as well as on his head. And they liked him almost at once. But on the first evening when he came out of to meet them at the front door, he was so odd looking that Lucy, who was the youngest, was a little afraid of him, and Edmund, who was the next youngest, wanted to laugh. So, what is this point of view? This is also in the third person point of view. Okay, the narrator describes events from a perspective of an outside observer using third person pronoun. All right, so let's go on to the test. Share your answers with me. All right, so which point of view does the narrator use in the passage? Jessica stepped into the room, closed the door, and stood with her back to it. My son lives, she thought. My son lives and is human. Paul looked at his mother. She told the truth. He wanted to get away alone and think this experience through. But he knew he could not leave until he was dismissed. First, second, or third. All right, so this is in the first person point of view. Okay, but if you say first person, no, but the third person is actually the right one. So you can just take notes that the character it's like described in someone's in an outsider view. So which point of view does the narrator use in the passage? I like the sound of Rudy's laughter. I don't like it very often. I don't hear it very often, but it always sort of this. I like the sound of Rudy's laughter. I don't hear it very often, but it's always sort of this avalanche of ha ha and ho ho and he he. I like to make him laugh. He loves my cartoons. He's a big goofy dreamer too, just like me. All right, so is this first, second, or third? Okay, so this is in the first person because it uses I, and the narrator says this from their point of view. Jonas went to his own desk and began to sort through his school papers for the evening's assignment, but his mind was still on December and the coming ceremony. Though he had been reassured by the talk with his parents, he hadn't the slightest idea what assignment the elders would be selecting for his future, or how he might feel about it when the day come, first, second, or third. All right, so this is the third person point of view. It says it from the outsider's point. All right, so they walked together for an hour or more without speaking. Ellen was grave and absorbed in the answers thought of that spring. Jethro was accustomed to adapting himself to the behaviors and mood of older people, and he found enough in the world about him to occupy his interest as he walked. All right, so this is the third person point of view. Here you come, better late than never. A face presentation, not the boy your father so desperately wanted, but here you come anyway. All 6 pounds, 3 ounces of you. Button nose, conical head, good color, a swool of dark hair atop your little crown, and a healthy pair of lungs too. First, second, or third. All right, so this is the second person point of view. Brian shrugged, but it ate at him. What they were going to do proved nothing. They were playing a game, and it struck him that Derek did that. His whole life was that. He knew it was unfair to think of the man that way. He didn't. After all, you know him very well. But he acted that way, like it was all a game, and Derek was approaching the whole business that way. Just a game. All right, so what do you think here? All right, so this is in the third person point of view. Ted Cole's children's books were more of intellectual and psychological and even emotional interest to Eddie than the novels were. A cautionary tale for children came natural to Ted. He could imagine and express their fears. He could satisfy children. Had Tom and Timothy lived into adulthood, they were doubtless have been disappointed in their father, and it was only as an adult that Ruth Cole would be disappointed in Ted as a child she loved, first, second, or third. All right, so what do we have over here? So we have the third person point of view. Okay. So in June 1959, you are 12 years old, and in 1 week, you and your sixth grade classmates will be graduating from the grammar school you have attended since you were five. It is a splendid day, late spring in its most lustrous incarnation, sunlight pouring down from a cloudless blue sky. Warm but not too warm, current humidity, a soft breeze stirring the air and ripping over your face and neck, and bare arms, first, second, or third. All right, so this is in second person point of view. Okay, so the circus looks abandoned and empty, but you think perhaps you can smell caramel wafting through the evening breeze. Beneath the crisp scent of the autumn leaves, the people around you are growing restless from waiting. A sea of shuffling feet, murmuring and about abandon the endeavor in search of some place warmer to pass the evening. You yourself are departing when it happens. First, second, or third. Okay, so this is in second person. Back when I still walked home with Sal, it was easier to pretend that the laughing man didn't scare me because Sal was pretending to. He tried not to show it, but he freaked when he saw the laughing man shaking his fist at the sky and kicking his leg out into traffic. I could tell by the way Sal's face kind of froze. I know all of his expression. First, second, or third. All right, so we have first person. All right, that's it for our lesson today on that point of view. Can you tell me if you have any questions? All right, since we have no questions, we'll end here. Try to complete this lesson if you haven't done it. See you all again next time. Bye, everyone.